I traded for Barbara.
Just wasting your time. He thinks who he
Alan
is.
Alda, Robin Williams. They give you what you want.
Sydney, I'm really not that interested. It's not my whole life.
What's that supposed to mean? That's my whole life, Mayor Sydney?
It's not my whole life. It's not my whole life. That's right. And it's yours, but not mine.
Hello, Scenesters. Today we'll be talking about our first Martin Scorsese movie, his 1982 and somewhat less discussed film, The King of Comedy, and our theme for the day, Narcissistic Delusion. I think most people know Martin Scorsese from Goodfellas, or maybe more recently, The Wolf of Wall Street. I love Goodfellas, but this is probably in my top 5 Martin Scorsese movies because I think a lot of his less discussed movies are so underrated. I'll definitely be doing Casino at some point because I've always felt the controlling nature of the relationship between Ace Rothstein and Ginger would make a good video for this channel, and I felt that way for years even though this channel is only a few months old. For those that don't know, Joker, directed by Todd Phillips and starring Joaquin Phoenix, was really heavily inspired by this movie, The King of Comedy, and it's got a lot of parallels with it. Mainly centered around the partially similar plot of a person with mental illness believing that they have this sort of delusional relationship with the popular late-night TV host. In fact, Joker is very aware of this and gives the audience a sort of wink and nod by casting Mr. De Niro as the antithesis role. Martin Scorsese would often do the exact same thing. In his version of Cape Fear, which is actually a remake, he cast some of the original actors, but then gave them different roles, so it's like a whole sneaky tradition. I feel like that would be an interesting video for someone like Rob Egger to do on what the purpose or effect is, or could be, from casting an actor from an earlier iteration of a work or from one closely inspired by, and giving them sort of an inverted role. Like if you cast a prisoner from the original of a series, but then cast them as a guard in an updated rendition. Or maybe like the town mayor recast as the village idiot. Or in this case, casting the original mentally disturbed but wishful comedian, but now as the talk show host that he became obsessed with. I feel like this is a unique dynamic, and it adds a lot to the lore of these universes if nothing else. And if I have more time, I might try to make another video exploring what might be going through our minds as we see Robert De Niro on screen as Murray in Joker, but all the while not being able to shake from our ingrained image of him as Rupert from this movie. But we're already off tangent. For those that don't know, I am Movie Review Justin, and this is Psychology in Movies. If you're new here, that's great, and if you're a returning viewer, even better. And thank you automatically if you've gotten this far. Here at this channel, we take psychology buzzwords or pop psychology concepts, and we find movies to use as an examples. That way you can go, oh, that's what splitting is, or that's what disassociation is. And then you can watch a whole movie to learn about it even more. Movies are a lot more entertaining and probably informative than just reading it from an academic book or from the DSM. And today, our special concept is not about when actors switch roles, but it is about Narcissistic Delusion. I was torn between that title name or calling it Delusions of Grandeur, plus I already have a video about narcissistic manipulation, but I decided to go with Narcissistic Delusion as opposed to just calling it Delusions of Grandeur, because Narcissistic Delusion implies a lot more about the root causes, and is more suggestive over the types of behavior that we'll see when it comes to these types of delusions, which we will definitely be seeing huge examples of it in this movie. Narcissism is a big topic. Delusion is a big topic. So buckle up because we're about to get into it. Delusion. We will start with delusion because I think it's a little bit easier to wrap our heads around. Delusion is the fixed belief in something that isn't true, even when presented with evidence to the contrary. Not to be confused with hallucinations, which is when we see or experience things that are not there or not happening. Delusions can turn into hallucinations if the psychosis gets worse, but generally when we say delusions, we really just mean believing in things that are clearly not true and that there is clear evidence against. There's a lot of different types of delusions, but we're going to stick with two main types. Paranoid delusions, which is when we believe people are out to get us or conspiring against us. Commonly this is, the government is out to get me, or tinfoil hat type of rhetoric that you see in pop culture representation, which is actually pretty accurate to how it appears in real life. In my personal experience working with these individuals, these paranoid beliefs might be used as a tool to manipulate a situation, especially to get out of something. Like, let's say if they don't like a person, especially if that person tries to hold them accountable in any way, they might say that that person has demons or is a demon themselves.
Ben Franklin invented electricity?
That's nonsense. I invented electricity. Ben Franklin is the devil!
That's just one example of using a paranoid belief as a manipulation. Then there's paranoid schizophrenia, with the difference between schizophrenic delusions and more common delusions is in their bizarreness or absurdity. A person with regular paranoid or narcissistic delusions might think that they are friends with a celebrity, like in this movie, or like they are rich, maybe the secret child to someone important or famous. It's unlikely, but it is technically possible, whereas a person with schizophrenia might believe something completely absurd, like aliens have installed microscopic satellites in their teeth at night, or archangels from the 8th dimension are communicating with them. In common delusions of all types, there's normally a lot of evidence hypothetically for or against the delusion. But in schizophrenia, the delusions are so absurd and inconsistent that they can never be proven or even evaluated for likelihood. Like in Joker, they can technically blood test Arthur and Thomas Wayne to see if Wayne is his father. It's doubtful someone with severe delusions would even accept the results if they ran contrary to their beliefs, but nevertheless, they could be tested. Whereas schizophrenic delusions, there's no way we can test for alien signals, or from angels. And so that's what we mean when we say someone has delusions versus someone having full-blown schizophrenia. Schizo itself actually means separation, and it's basically whenever their sensory intake is separated from their mental processing, meaning that they were walking around seeing trees and ground and cars and regular stuff, but processing in angels and stars and creatures and signals from other dimensions. So nothing they are processing has anything to do with the actual environment around them, or just very loosely. People with schizophrenia might have full-on hallucinations. We're slightly off tangent, but I wanted to clarify because delusions are a broad topic and these distinctions are important. We don't want to say that someone has schizophrenia because they think they could beat LeBron James in a basketball game. Stupidity, maybe. Delusions, yes. But not schizophrenia, which is like a whole separate thing. Finally, we have narcissistic delusions, or delusions of grandeur, which are the same thing, which is when a person believes they are famous or more important than they really are. This is the type of delusion that we see in this movie. And if they aren't famous or important yet, they feel it's just because they haven't networked with the right people yet, or just haven't met the right people yet, or been exposed to them, because then they would be on the fast track to stardom or success. That also is something Rupert does in this movie. I should probably clarify real quick, the whole movie is about this guy Rupert Pupkin, who believes that he deserves to be on the Jerry Langford late-night TV show. He even has these extremely elaborate fantasies of being friends with Jerry admitting Rupert is the better comedian out of the two, and eventually wanting Rupert to replace him. And we wouldn't even know that these were just fantasies if it weren't established fairly early that Rupert spends a lot of time actually acting out these fantasies where he lives alone with his mom. One of his fantasies even culminates with him getting married to a girl that rejected him in high school in front of his old high school principal. There's a heavy component to propping up the ego of the person having delusions of grandeur, or narcissistic delusions. And that's a good way to bridge the gap and start talking about the other component of this disorder, which is narcissism. I think in the modern age, narcissism is mostly synonymous with people being rude or self-centered, but those are actually only components of it, or even just possible behaviors associated with narcissism. Distinct from that, narcissism is this preoccupation with your own image and brand and how you're presented or perceived, especially at inappropriate times. Meaning, something terrible could have just happened and somebody needs empathy or support, and the narcissist is thinking about if other people were impressed by them or not. Did this person notice my shoes? Did they like me? This desire to seek approval and preserve a false image, a lack of empathy and self-awareness, plus an overall unwillingness to face accountability or adapt to meet other people's needs are the three cornerstones of narcissism, and without even one of them, well, then you have something else than narcissism. If you lack empathy and have no desire to help others or coexist peacefully with other people, but you also have no desire to preserve a false image of yourself, meaning you don't care what other people think about you, well then you're just a psychopath, but you're not a narcissist. Not that one is better than the other. Likewise, let's say you do have a grandiose personality that doesn't match your reality. You're walking around calling yourself Lord Bone Crusher, and you can't read people very well and lack self-awareness. But you are willing to improve your social skills, and you're open to feedback. Well, then you're just socially awkward. You're not narcissistic. These distinctions are important because not only do we as a society overuse narcissism to mislabel things that we don't like, but using it accurately implies a lot more about the motivations and causes behind certain behaviors or beliefs. Mislabeling people as narcissistic because they did something we didn't like can be a delusion within itself to escape accountability, so we want to avoid that, but ironically, actual narcissism is itself a type of delusion because it involves sustaining a false fantasy image of oneself and their place in the world. Narcissism is caused by people not adequately meeting a child's needs and development. This stunts their ability to empathize with others since nobody ever empathized with the child, and so they start to learn that they need to be responsible for meeting their own needs. And they learn to get their needs met through independence and insistence rather than community and cooperation, which further hampers their social skills. And since their needs are so inconsistently met, they never develop the time, resources, or empathy to want to help others meet their needs. And this kind of stunts them even further because it makes it hard for them to make friends and develop the social skills needed to navigate the world. They see things or individuals as all black or all white, all good or all bad. This person helps me meet my needs, so they are good. This person doesn't, and so they don't even register. They are like an extra in a movie. We definitely see examples of that in this movie. Notice how Rupert doesn't want to even acknowledge or talk to anyone unless they can connect him with Jerry, or at the very least, it's good news about his career prospects. Since all individuals need to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of worth, if they don't get it from their environment, they can start to get it from within, but then they don't have the standards or buffers associated with getting that approval and needed to assimilate into society. And this often puts them at odds with the world around them and causes distress within them because the world does not treat or appreciate these individuals in the same way they treat or appreciate themselves. These people can seem very entitled and bratty, whereas normal people have a programmed baseline level of what is socially acceptable and value. Narcissistic individuals choose traits within themselves that they think other people should value and then kind of force themselves and those traits on us. And then expect us and feel entitled for us, that we should be grateful for it. I guarantee you both Masha and Rupert think that this is for Jerry's own good here in this scene. As mentioned before, these individuals could have a really tough time receiving feedback. Early in life, they learned that their behavior didn't matter one way or the other, so they have a tough time wanting to change it now. On top of that, they've already spent so much time fantasizing about how great they are, that those fantasies have become ingrained within them and been accepted as a lived reality, despite it never actually happening. You'll notice Rupert does not want to take their input or advice at the television studio. These people lack humility, which is when you are willing to learn and assess areas where you might need improvement. I've talked about humility, and humility is such an important topic if we want to be successful, but narcissistic people lack humility, meaning they don't want to improve. In their minds, what has held them back is not a lack of experience or talent, but a lack of exposure and opportunity. And this kind of makes sense if you think about it, because this person typically hasn't gotten a lot of feedback in early life. And so their understanding of the world is not that our personalities shape our environment, but that our experiences depend on who is around us. Of being around the right person who will finally meet those needs and see and appreciate them in the way that they've always dreamed of or imagined. So there's nothing in them that needs to be changed. It's all about just being given the right chance or meeting the right person. So these people can be very stubborn and hard to work with. They can dismiss you if you aren't on board with their agenda and treat you like an NPC. Lastly, I wanted to talk about the role of fantasy and even limerence for a bit. I'll make another video just about limerence at some point, but limerence is basically when we escape into fantasy to escape from everyday life. And these fantasies can be very vivid and powerful to get us infatuated with people we've never actually met, and we can spend a lot of time imagining whole imaginary lives with these people. Even though it's mostly associated with romantic attachment, here it's no different, where Rupert spends hours of each day fantasizing about his future relationships and how they will go, when he should be humbly working on his stand-up comedy instead. You'll also notice that his limerence ironically works as a barrier between him and possible romantic or professional relationships. You'll notice people find it very draining being around Rupert because he expects people to mirror his excitement and treat him like a celebrity. Here in this dinner scene, Rupert is expecting Rita to be blown away and just be so thankful Rupert is showing her interest and to basically throw herself at his feet. Even when by some miracle she does offer to let him come inside her home, which to me seemed like a clear sexual invitation, he doesn't read her or the situation correctly because he's so wrapped up in his own head and fantasies, and therefore can't advance relationships ever to the point where he sees them and where he believes them to be at, despite having just superficial interactions with the people he fantasizes of. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the unique love and infatuation with being on TV. Having made videos, I feel like I have a special experience and a unique insight on the infatuation of wanting to be on TV and wanting to reach the masses. And indeed, the rise of lifestyle reality TV shows like the Kardashians has given a whole generation of people wanting to be influencers or web celebrities. I think the reason for this and why working in TV or recording is so addictive and consuming is because of the control that you can exert over your own image through the way it's recorded and edited. Having that much control over exactly how you're presented, but then on top of that, it allows you the fantasy over its hypothetical reach and influence. You'll notice how Rupert fantasizes about hypothetical fans, and even his old principal becoming a devout fan. Listen to the specific and lofty words he uses to describe the importance of Rupert in his life. Not only does the fantasy of TV afford him the perfect opportunity to endlessly tweak his image, but it allows him the fantasy of having these perfect interactions with fans, that he can escape into fantasies where these interactions with fans can represent everything he's ever wanted to hear or feel coming from other people. He can fantasize about Liza Minnelli being a fan, or Tony Bennett. It's the same way for any web creator, because we can fantasize one of our random anonymous viewers is secretly someone important or a celebrity, or we can fantasize over our influence or importance to these people. We can fantasize about the perfect superfan, one who watches all of our content and appreciates us in all the ways we want to be appreciated. A fan who's charming and attractive, or even has the resources to connect us with other opportunities or people. This is why TV and web creation can be so powerful and addictive for some people, because of the level of control that you have over your own image and brand, as well as the room for fantasy you have when thinking about what the audience response will be. Obviously, the more sane you are, the more realistic you keep your expectations, but even then there can be this lottery mindset where you never know who might click and enjoy your videos. I'm trying to think of what else to say before we finish. Overall, even though Rupert is very dressed up and his suits are somewhat impeccable, his body language and energy make him seem more like a hyperactive little boy in the body of a 30-year-old man than a working comedian. On top of that, his inability to intake feedback and recognizing things he needs to work on means he will never progress in his dream. He will always be looking for the perfect person to network with, who will discover him and give him the book, TV, or movie deals he's always craved and fantasized over. This movie does end with him getting his own show, but I took it as a test to the audience to see if the audience really believed Rupert could luck out and get his opportunity, or if it was just another fantasy in his head. You'll notice we never hear any of Rupert's actual jokes or material until the very end, and I would say nothing about it suggests any sort of comedic greatness. If anything, it suggests that only through the aid of laugh tracks and viral recognition are some things elevated to fame and funny without them being able to achieve it organically. That's all I have for today. As always, there are more themes within these movies that we can discuss, but I try to keep them only focused on one topic at a time, so these videos are by no means exhaustive both on the topic or its themes, or the themes that we can analyze from each movie. They are merely jumping off points so you can start your own journey of exploring these themes on your next rewatch of these movies. This is Psychology in Movies. I am Movie Review Justin. If you've gotten this far and enjoyed this video or felt that you learned from it, go ahead and like and subscribe please, because this helps my channel grow and reach new people, as well as encourages me to keep making content. Also, feel free to check out any of my videos where I talk about all sorts of concepts and use movies as examples to illustrate them. If you have any sort of movies or concepts that you'd like me to talk about, go ahead and comment below on things you'd like to see in upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and listening to me on this one. Hope you enjoyed it because this is one of my favorite Scorsese films. Take care and stay healthy and informed.